Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. But do you know when to stay silent? Abraham Lincoln, one of the most remarkable figures in history, often taught us profound lessons without speaking directly. One of his greatest unspoken lessons is the power of silence. Silence can protect you, guide you, and even make you wiser than others. Yet, most of us don't realize how essential it is to learn when not to speak. Picture this. You're in the middle of a heated conversation. Tensions are high. People are throwing words at each other like weapons. In moments like this, Lincoln's lesson would come in handy. He knew that not every battle is fought with words. Sometimes, the best way to win is to step back and observe. People expect responses, they expect reactions. But what if, instead, you chose to remain silent? What if, instead of adding to the chaos, you chose to listen? You would gain more than you could ever imagine. Abraham Lincoln had a calm demeanor and a way of understanding situations that required great emotional intelligence. Imagine being in his shoes, leading a nation divided by civil war. Everyone wanted to give their opinion. Everyone wanted him to act fast. And yet, Lincoln knew the value of patience. He knew that before reacting, one must observe, understand, and, most importantly, learn when not to respond. One of the most important life lessons you can take from Lincoln is learning to be silent when emotions are high. When you're angry, frustrated, or upset, it's easy to say things you'll regret. You want to lash out, defend yourself, or prove a point. But Abraham Lincoln knew that words spoken in anger are often the ones we regret the most. Silence in these moments isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the wisdom to know that words can cause more damage than good, especially when spoken without thought. Imagine for a moment you're in a disagreement with someone you care about. The heat of the argument builds, and you're tempted to say things that might hurt the other person. Lincoln would advise you to pause. In those moments, silence is not only a sign of maturity, but also a way to preserve relationships. You're not avoiding the issue, you're allowing time for cooler heads to prevail. Often, the silence you offer is a gift of space where peace can grow. Now, let's talk about another situation where Lincoln's silence speaks volumes. When surrounded by people who don't understand you. Imagine trying to explain your dreams, your aspirations, or your beliefs to people who just don't get it. You've been there, right? You've tried to show someone why you're passionate about something, only to be met with doubt, skepticism, or even ridicule. Lincoln would remind you that silence is powerful in these moments. Not everyone will understand your vision, and that's okay. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Lincoln was often misunderstood. Many didn't see his vision for a united country. He could have spent countless hours trying to justify his decisions, but instead, he let his actions speak louder than his words. That's the key takeaway here. When people don't understand your journey, you don't owe them an explanation. Let your success, your hard work, and your persistence do the talking. Silence in these moments is a form of self-respect, a way of saying, I know my path, and I don't need to convince anyone else. Another moment where silence is invaluable is when you're faced with gossip or criticism. Lincoln was no stranger to this either. As one of the most powerful leaders, he faced relentless criticism, and yet he often chose to remain silent in response. Why? Because he understood that responding to every critic, every piece of gossip, was not only exhausting but unnecessary. Silence, in this case, is a way to protect your peace. You don't need to engage in every battle. Some battles are won by walking away. Think about the times when you've been criticized or when rumors have been spread about you. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But ask yourself, is it worth your energy? Abraham Lincoln's life teaches us that silence, in the face of gossip, is often the most dignified response. Let your life, your actions, and your truth be your defense. People will always talk, but not every conversation deserves your participation. Have you ever felt the pressure to fill the silence during awkward or uncomfortable moments? It's something we all experience, those moments when the conversation dies, and suddenly the silence feels unbearable. But what if I told you that silence in those moments can be a powerful tool? Lincoln knew the importance of silence in communication. He understood that sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. When you're in a situation where you feel pressure to speak just to avoid awkwardness, remember Lincoln's wisdom. Silence gives you time to think, to process, and to respond thoughtfully when it matters. It also allows others the space to reflect. Have you ever noticed how much more impactful your words are when you allow silence to precede them? It's in those quiet moments that people truly listen. Silence can turn an ordinary conversation into something profound. Lincoln's life was filled with moments where silence allowed him to gather his thoughts, to reflect, and to make decisions that would change the course of history. You can apply this lesson to your own life. The next time you feel pressured to speak, whether in a meeting, a social gathering, or even in a one-on-one conversation, pause. Allow silence to do the heavy lifting. It's in these quiet moments that true understanding can take place. Lastly, one of the most profound moments to embrace silence is when you are in deep reflection. Lincoln was a man who often retreated into silence to think deeply about the challenges he faced. We live in a world that is constantly noisy, where silence is rare and uncomfortable for many. But Lincoln understood that to make wise decisions, you need to retreat into silence. Silence is where you meet yourself. It's where you come face to face with your thoughts, your fears, and your dreams. In those silent moments of self-reflection, you gain clarity. You begin to understand yourself better, and that self-awareness is what will guide you through life's toughest challenges. Lincoln's life teaches us that silence isn't something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. It's in the silence that you'll find your answers. You don't need to constantly seek validation or opinions from others. Trust the silence and trust yourself. So, what can you take away from Abraham Lincoln's life lessons about silence? Silence is a shield, a tool, and a guide. It's a way to protect your peace, to gather wisdom, and to navigate life with grace. Whether you're facing criticism, high emotions, or even just the pressures of daily life, silence can be your greatest ally. Lincoln's legacy is one of strength, wisdom, and humility. His life teaches us that silence is not only golden, it's transformative. The next time you find yourself in a situation where words feel necessary, remember the power of silence. It's in the quiet moments that you'll find your strength. It's in the pauses that you'll discover clarity. And it's in your silence that others will come to understand your true power.